Middle of the night theology talk with Suzanne Tidkemeyer. If you don't know who I am, I used to write for Pathos. I wrote for, let me see what color I like better, what the light is. I wrote a column called No Longer Quivering, where I went over almost every day some aspect of Quiverfull and the different types of churches and belief systems that make that up. I did this for almost 10 years. I did it for a few years before. I'm sorry, I'm trying to go to bed and I'm like really tired and exhausted and weirded out. And my Twitter explodes. Hey, that Amber chick. Hey, so you're getting the middle of the night theology me. Why? Because my messenger blew up just a little bit ago. It blew up so bad, I thought, well, I better get on here and explain why some of that is not true. Okay, are we good? I'm going to have to pull this up and just debunk it point by point like I have before. About the truth of what is really true about the IBLP and Quiverfull and Dominionism and a lot of different other types of theology. There's someone that's running around and saying that you're my Twitter going off, my Twitter, what am I saying? That's how tired I am. My messenger going off. Hey, I'm Levi. What time is it? It's a bit past 1 here in Georgia. It's a bit past midnight, and I should be in the bed, but I'm not because my messengers have exploded. I was headed that way, and I never made it in. There's some claims being made that the IBLP, that Dominionism, that everything connected to Quiverfull fundamentalism is sick, it's twisted, it promotes the R word, RAPE, that it has sick PEDOS, and just a whole bunch of giant blanket statements being thrown out there by a lot of people that don't know. People that 2 years ago had never heard of Dominionism, had never heard of Advanced Training Institute or Institute of Basic Life Principles, ATI, IBLP. So there's these uneducated people that have just watched the Duggars just a little bit that are running around making all these theology claims, and it's pretty interesting. Now, I'm not going to say there isn't things going on, like there's not some type of sick and twisted theology going on, or that there aren't those guys who've been poorly behaved, who've done SA. Yes, there are, but there are in all religious organizations. Like I said, any high demand religious organization breeds these petty, tin plated dictator patriarchal types, and they do tend to think that any nookie cookie out there is theirs, whether they're married to it or it's somebody around them. And there are those types, no doubt they exist, but they're not everyone, not everybody connected to any religion. I've seen the statistics on this. This stuff used to cross my desk all the time. And there's no one religion that's worse at it than others, all of them. I mean, you'll find them in Buddhism and Baha'i and other faiths that you don't associate with the IBLP. Yeah, I'm up late. And I'm ranting, Kira. So to say this is just the IBLP and other groups around them, there's some of it, it's just disingenuous and wrong. It's not everybody. It's not everybody in any of those groups. It's just a certain percentage. That doesn't make it right, I'm sure. Also, I just have to say this. Outing victims, talking about their victimhood without their permission, sharing all the details, sharing speculation on the sexuality of these kids, these second-gen young adults, it puts them at a tremendous, tremendous risk. We have to be very careful about how we talk about them, how we categorize their sexuality. We really shouldn't speculate on what they are if they aren't out of the closet in whatever they practice. Because some of these groups take some very hardline stances against anything that is not man and woman married sexuality. It's not to be exploited, because when you exploit it and you talk about it and you name people and you name victims, the only thing you're doing is you're giving those over them, those with some petty power, you're giving them more fodder to hurt, abuse, and even possibly even kill those people. So we shouldn't be speculating on any of that. If someone doesn't say, hey, I'm this, and I want to talk about it, share it with your thousands of viewers. And yes, while some of the Baptist preachers are IBLP adjacent, some of them are independent fundamentalist Baptist adjacent, some are Dominionist, some practice complementarianism. There's all sorts of, I'm having a night owl attack. I'm ranting tonight yet again because of some of the things that are said. And of course, when you have these kind of theologies, the ones who are going to suffer are going to be the women and the children. That's another reason why I say it's so important that we do not out any of these people. We don't talk about them in certain ways. We do not expose more than they have already, they've already exposed. Outing people is never right, especially people in highly religious groups. You never know what others in the group will do to them. Exactly. It's none of your business and not your story to share, unless the person comes to you and tells you, hey, can you share my story? Because I can't. That would be about the only time that is an acceptable means of doing that. Okay, so the IBLP and some of the surrounding ones, they don't affect millions of peoples. They probably right now are at a downturn more than they ever have before. They've been around a long time. The IBLP has been around since 1959, and it's changed a lot through the years. It hasn't entirely been the dangerous C word that somebody keeps throwing about. I don't understand. I don't understand that focus either, the Amber chick. But I do regret having had a conversation once with one of the other YouTubers about who I thought may have been closeted in the Duggar family. That was a huge mistake. I still believe there are closeted people in the Duggar family. I'm not going to give you any hints at who I think they are. I met the Duggars once, and all it did was confirm my own biases about who I thought was what. But to this day, I would not hint at who it is, how many it is, any of that, because there are real world consequences for blurting out your opinions without any backing for those adult children, especially when they're so obsessed with virginity. Yes, so that is a big thing in this group. I do follow the Preacher Boys podcast YouTube. I don't always have time to watch everything they put out, but I started following them. And I think there's some interesting things being said by them. Some important work is being done too. So, sure, most people in America weren't aware of them until the Duggars showed up on TLC. And the IBLP is not getting much recruitment through the Duggars or the Bates. It's just not happening because both of them downplay who and what it is they believe in. Why is everyone making such a big deal about Jana? I think it's because it's the first crack in the machinery. It's one of the few things we've seen besides Josh that isn't 100% squeaky scrub clean. This whole claim about Jana and her, I'm just going to call her legal woes. She says she was not arrested, that she's going to go to court. But in my part of the world, when you have to pay bail and you have to go to court, you've been arrested. So I don't know how to even parse that and what it looks like. We're going to have to wait and see. She said she wasn't arrested. She did have to make bail, and she does have to go to court. Draw your own conclusions. Don't take anything I'm saying as a gospel truth. Research it, research it, research it. I spent a lot of today researching a lot of these guys whose ministries have ended badly, or else they have had a pile of troubles. And I keep getting stuck on Jimmy Swaggart. Jimmy Swaggart is not IBLP. He and Marvin Gorman got into some fighting between them. Marvin Gorman and Jimmy were both Assemblies of God pastors. Marvin Gorman was in New Orleans. Brother Jimmy always practiced out of Baton Rouge. Well, thank you so much, Jilly Ford. My yarn fund thanks you. I got to build it back up after all the money I spent last weekend on yarn. So Brother Jimmy and Marvin Gorman also have links to the IBLP. Gorman has hosted the seminars by Bill Gothard in the past. My husband attended one in like 1975 at Gorman's church. And I've seen the material that they were doing then, and it wasn't that objectionable. What happens in these groups is you get somebody like Bill Gothard that everybody tells them that, I hate to be crude, that his farts smell like lily of the valley. They start really building his ego up. His theology gets weirder and weirder. He does more forcible over the clothing touching of the young intern teenagers he surrounds himself with. And exactly. Whatever you're doing is safe and consensual and healthy. It's no one's business. Exactly. So they've gotten extremely weirder. Anytime you have a closed loop in these groups and you have them getting tighter and tighter, the theology gets weirder as it goes along. And what has happened with Bill Gothard is he's gone for a pretty standard Christianity that was focused with teaching conflict resolution to teenagers using the Bible. That's where he started. Then we get to this crazy umbrella and this thing that he says about all women have to be X, Y, and Z. They all have curly hair, long curly hair, romantic dresses. They have to listen to everything the husband says. They have to be beyond submissive. You have all of that. And Gothard has just gotten crazier with that through the years. Now, Gothard will never, ever be able to get back in power because he has been kicked to the curb when 30 plus women sued him. And I know at one point there was over 45 that were talking about suing him. So that went down. So glad to watch it. Where the hell was everybody? There was no videos. I was just like looking at my subscriptions going, what the heck's happening here? And I wasn't planning on actually going on at all. Today I took page after page after page of notes because I'm starting to look at how many of these guys in this type of Christianity who are Quiverfull adjacent, who've ended up poorly, who've had, how can I say this without getting spanked by YouTube? They have had horizontal fellowship where they shouldn't have had horizontal fellowship with people they're not supposed to be having horizontal fellowship with. When I was part of my Quiverfull church, horizontal fellowship was a code word for sex that people use quite frequently. Gothard's proclamations remind me of Warren Jeff's epiphanies from jail. There's a lot that Warren Jeffs and he have in common, because the thing with Warren Jeffs, hey Brenda Lee, the thing with Warren Jeffs is there's no pushback, there's nobody to keep him balanced. And it even says in the Bible, you're supposed to be with other believers as iron sharpens iron. When the guys get up to the top of the Ecclesiastes hill, up to the top theology hill, there's nobody to tell them, hey, maybe you're unbalanced. Maybe you might need to look at this a different way. They have none of that. There's no safeguards. These churches, these organizations they set up, there's no national charter. None of that. None of that at all. None of that at all. So all this crap just gets worse and worse and worse. Not tired and watching a Law and Order SVU marathon. That's my jam. I do that too a lot. Another creator watch calls it doing the grown up. Yeah, doing the grown up. That's exactly right. So I'm going to go over some of these other really, really ridiculous things. Not all of these people are armed, looking for an armed confrontation, not trying to take over the government, no matter what you might think about January the 6th. That was an outlier, not an actual attack by Christian Dominionists. Now, there were some Christian Dominionists in that group that took on the Capitol, but not all of them are like that. Some Christian Dominionists are like Doug Wilson. They're just pontificating from behind a computer, and their circle of influence. The circle of influence of most of these guys is actually pretty small because they really are outliers to American Christianity. So I wouldn't actually call what they're doing as influencing millions of people to join. These men think that they are God on earth, are megalomaniacs, no check and balance. CULT leaders, exactly. And fortunately, like I said, their sphere of influence is very, very small. So it's not like they're going to do much to bring on the end of this world as we know it, even though a lot of them would like to do that. You know, even in my old church here in Costa Rica, there are dominionists that want to overthrow the government in violent armed insurrection. They want to overthrow the American government. There's so many things they want to do like that. But the thing that's nice is they don't have a lot of influence. They're just yelling into the wind for the most part. I used to watch a forensic files playlist, getting I'm tired, every night, but had to stop when my kids started to understand. She's 8, but still crawls into my bed every morning. Aw, that's so cute. Yes, they keep the following contained, closed and contained. And here's the thing, sometimes they do their outreach stuff and they try to add people to the circle, but most people have enough common sense to back away. Or in the case of the Duggars, people, once they peek behind the curtain and see there's no power there and that it's every man for his own stupid self, they say, now, wait a minute. We never did this in Episcopal church or Methodist church or Catholic church or whatever. So the influence is limited. It's very limited. And since the Duggars have come along, it's even more limited because everybody knows and how they are now. Dominionism and Christian in small things. When we used to go to Toronto Airport Christian Fellowship back around 2003, 2002, the Christian Dominion thing was pushed really hard. They would encourage everybody to believe and pray and study to be high place takers, to take your place in the government, in the entertainment industry, out in Hollywood, in the music industry, and overtake it and turn it all Christian. That is something they have been beating their gums about for years that I've yet to see happen. And it's not from want of trying, because look at all these Left Behind movies and books. Look at all these really incredibly horrible Christian films that they've been out there, like Fireproof. I didn't know whether to throw up or laugh when I saw that. And I was still going to a Quiverfull church when that one came out because it was pretty ridiculous. I actually bought the book, the companion book that went with it. On day 10, I threw the book away because it was telling me to do ridiculous things there was no way I could do that would just make my marriage a whole lot weirder. What do you think Anna and company told Josh's kids? I'm sure they told him that daddy has to go away for a while, but I'm sure they didn't say, your dad is in jail and maybe in jail for 20 years. I'm sure they didn't tell them that. I'm sure they told them a very limited thing about what the father did. And that's probably better for kids anyway. They don't need to know every single detail. I know Jim, Bob, Michelle are comparing him to a martyr figure from the Bible. Can't remember who, and if they don't go along with it, they'll be cut off from the family. That's what is scary to me about this whole thing. They are looking at Josh like he is some kind of giant martyr now. And they're going to keep beating that drum. And anybody who doesn't go along with them with the family is likely to be cut off financially, spiritually, emotionally, physically. Maybe a crusade mission work. Yeah, I would like to load him onto a horse and send him out to the Middle East with a sword and see how well that works out. Daddy went away on a ministry mission. That is a very good answer. They may actually have said that to the kids. And that's kind of sad. Now, here's the thing. Someone is claiming that they try to defend their rights using violence. That's not necessarily true. They don't always do that. The violence is very seldom. I've seen very few people in this group use any kind of violence outside of the whole January 6th thing, the few people who went there. Now, when you do leave, they do try to beat you back with their tongues. First, they try to convince you how sinful you are, that you must come back or risk being cast in the outer darkness. You risk your soul, you risk damnation, and then at some point they will shun you. They won't actively try to use violence against you or threats. And they won't stalk you, and they definitely won't kill you. Now, they will talk some trash about you after you've left and tell everybody in the group to pray for you because you got Satan's horns coming out of the top of your head, or ridiculous things like that. Hey, Grandma Laurie, they control the news and information so they can tell the C word, whatever they want. Total martyr and framed. I'm sure that's what they're going to say. And Mackenzie would be old enough to catch on quickly if they actually watch television. But television is such a big no-no in that world that it's just not going to happen. If he talks to fellow inmates about faith, it's not exactly a lie now, is it? Well, that's one of those polite white lies that sometimes get used so that somebody's feelings don't get hurt. Like asking somebody, does this dress make me look fat when you are wearing a circus lady tent like I'm wearing right now? How terrifying for these families and individuals. You have to rely on the church because you're probably impoverished. And then if you have any sort of differing opinions, you're kicked out. Most definitely. Yeah, that gave me a little bit of a giggle too. I'm sure that's how they're going to parse it, though. They're going to say, Josh is doing the most important work ever as a missionary behind bars. And like I said, I still think he's going to end up in Tucson because the Tucson Club Fed is where they stick a lot of the sex offenders. They put them all together. So if that happens and he ends up in Tucson, then they're just going to start saying that he's in Arizona on a mission trip. I'm sure that's what they're going to tell the kids. Not to go off topic, but I got my kidney on Wednesday. Oh my goodness, Kira, that is fabulous. I'm glad to hear that. How are you doing? Oh, you get your kidney. Awesome. Kira, that's really good news. My husband only has one, and we worry about that all the time. Mackenzie is old enough to hear the adult whispers of the home and figure out where he really is. The oldest boy as well. Amanda, that may well be true. Yeah, Jade-eyed lady, I'm up in the middle of the night just ranting because people were PMing me like mad. I'm scared that when he gets out, he's going to be 100 times worse than he was before he went in. Melanie, that could well be. And oh, your daughter, congratulations. That is great news. Yeah, he will probably learn a lot from the other offenders. Because if that's one thing that I don't like about our current incarceration system, is it does seem to make career criminals and people come out with the knowledge on how to run their scams even more effectively. I don't know if that's how it works with PEDO, but I wouldn't doubt it at all. Yeah, Kira, I hope that goes so well for you. It goes smoothly and goes from there, and everything works like it's supposed to work. He'll take over Gilbate's spot leading the IBLP. Would that be something else? It seems to be a common theme that these leaders are persecuted. Oh, always, 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 always. We call that martyr baiting. And they're all guilty of it. They always say these people are against me, these people are driving me over the edge, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and it's just pretty crazy. Kira, no more chemo. That is good. That is good. Sometimes they put me on chemo for my asthma if it gets too bad and can't turn it off any other way. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Not even on without a box of Kleenex. And yeah, you come out being a better criminal. I'm happy. I got to show you guys something. Ta-da! They're not Kleenex, but they're Walmart brand, and they're made in America, so they're not like sandpaper. I'm very upset about that a couple of weeks ago. I couldn't get any more. Do you think they'll find out if they do investigate and find something happened to their children that they will be safe and taken out of the situation? Well, I think if they do a forensic exam, and I believe they probably will go ahead and get a court order and do that, just based upon having seen things like this in the past. They may find something and they may find nothing. I mean, there's a strong possibility that was never done to the children because a lot of these guys, not all of them, a lot of them have had children and the children have never been touched. So the children are just off limits because they have a real connection with the children. Whereas the victims that they prey upon, they view those as things. If you can dehumanize someone, you can abuse them. So I think they're probably going to be safe. Well, Jade, I think that they are going down in membership. The more this stuff is exposed, the fewer members, the more things happen like Handmaid's Tale comes out. I think the fewer these places are and these people, the less influence they have. The Duggars are never coming back to TV. I don't see how there's any way they can ever return. Not even Jessa and Ben. I just can't see it. There's just been too much dirty, heavy water under the bridge for them ever to be able to come back again. And no, there are not thousands upon thousands of abusive PEDOs in the IBLP. There are not. That is hyperbole that's being promoted just so that someone can keep making content. None of that is true at all. Okay, I got to look at my other thing. I tell you, I'm kind of out there tonight. I think the only ones that might have a chance to be on TV again are Jeremy and Ginger. That's a possibility. That is a strong possibility, I'd say, because they've distanced themselves so much from those two. If in the United States, Josh and Anna's kids cannot be assessed for previous abuse, that is horrible and disrespectful of the children. Ooh, that is. It was my understanding that they could go ahead and get a court order because Josh has now been convicted, and examine the children to see if they have been. So children are scared to tell all their abuse, have no problem if they tell an adult of their abuse. I don't think that they're going to be able to, even if it's happening. I think that it's going to be hard to prove there's any more abuse that has happened or other abusers in that family. I think that's a no starter. I like this. Whatever, they can all move to Texas to succeed and run themselves in the ground. I am all for that. I think that's a great idea. Send them all to Texas and let them secede from the Union. Okay, and I was just looking for something because there was another thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, thank you, Jedi lady. I'm rambling today. Oh, I don't know. Buffering, come back. Am I buffering? Let me see if I can come back. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, well, let's see. Am I still buffering? I'm back. Okay. I just wanted to say it's not a pregnancy cult. Not everybody is thrilled to be pregnant all the time. Men don't try to keep their wives pregnant. It's more about allowing God to control how many kids you'll have. What they like to say in Quiverfull is God opens and God closes the womb. That's really how it's done. It's not some kind of fetish. Someone is trying to make it seem like it's a sexual fetish of some weird thing. Texas Abbott pulling a card out of the Trump playbook with the wall building to get reelected. And they are begging for money and blaming Biden. Oh, my goodness. I was going to ask if anybody knew what was going on with Texas and the wall, because everything I keep seeing about the wall and the wall they were building, the wall they were talking about building is easy to climb. I've seen videos of the Mexican president climbing to the top, showing it can be done in under a minute. So I'm not sure how effective building a wall is at this point. Just like it just disturbs me about the people in Washington. These people are not fleeing to the U.S. to get on welfare. No, not at all. These people, and I can speak of this since I've been living in Central America, I've seen this. Some of these Central American countries, people are fleeing from the worst poverty and violence. They want to be able to raise their kids in a place where there's not raw sewage in the streets and where they don't have to fear drive-by shootings and various things. There are parts of Central America that are so violent and there's no work. I know for a fact from people who've hitchhiked through, through Nicaragua, I almost said Nica, like we say here, who will tell you that the poverty and the lack of jobs there is so bad. People are selling priceless antiques that have been in their families for many, many years. They're selling them for pennies on the dollar just to have the money to feed the families. That's how bad things have gotten in Nicaragua. He is kind of a joke. I hate to say it. He just had a press conference and the webs are singing his praises. The wall is a freaking joke as far as I'm concerned. Kara, I don't think that Josh did that. It seems to be all of his prawn that he's been caught with through the years is all focused on women and girls. So tender mercies. He doesn't seem to be interested in guys. And so I think that's a pretty awesome thing for the most part, because I think it probably kept his brothers safe. Now, I keep hearing one person talking about how there are at least 2 other brothers who are predators. I've heard nothing of that sort. My friend Cindy Kunzman has heard nothing of that sort. We've talked about this subject before because everything is such an open secret. As we were laughing this morning about, have you ever seen the television show Good Christian Bitches? GCB. It's really funny. It's pretty horrible too because there's a lot of truth to it. It's all about prayer gossip and all kinds of just ridiculous stuff like that. No, I know you're not accusing, but I don't think it's a possibility. I think that Josh is strictly focused on females. Yes, yes, yes. And Levi, that's really what's happening, I think, more and more. And when you see how these people are living on pennies on the dollar, when you go past the house of ill repute and you know it's filled with girls from El Salvador, when you see the Nicaraguans here working for pennies on the dollar, we have one set that's worked for us before that keep contacting us. They're dying to work. They're offering to work for like $3 an hour, $2 an hour, $4 an hour, doing all kinds of stuff. And I may employ them here very shortly because I do need some things done around here. Is the Alert Academy and the IBLP strictly a conversion program? No, Kira. It is a combination of things. The Alert Academy, they have programs. They have some where they can train you to be a paramedic, and you can get like the certifications you need, like showing that you're CPR certified and that you're certified to do all these different things. There's firefighter ones. There are some conversion ones that run once a year or so. But there's so many different ones, including ones that are more like military focused, where they and almost like scouts, where they teach them different things. So not all of the Alert Academies are a bunch of hideous indoctrination. Some of them do teach some real life skills. So I can't fault Bill Gothard for that. In fact, if you take everything about the IBLP and you run it against the bite model for figuring out what is a C word and what isn't, they don't meet the criteria. They don't hit all the buttons you must hit to be considered a C word. So it's a high demand religious organization that may not be a C word. Do you think the Duggars are going to be shunned by their congregation because of what Josh did, and now everything is coming to the surface? And I'm sure it's got to be a little embarrassing for the sisters. Kira, I saw that she had done that, and I don't think she's right. I think she has it all wrong who she thinks the gay Duggars are. And I think it's wrong to publicly speculate about that anyway, because you don't know. It could get back. You could say, oh, hey, I know so-and-so Duggar. I know that Gerbil Daya is gay. And then the next thing you know, they take him out in the field and beat him. Who knows? So I don't think that's a helpful thing. I think the way they harass people of different sexualities and some of the things that have gone down. I mean, all you have to do is look at James Swift's autobiography, Rusted Rainbows, or see any of his appearances on television shows. And it's horrifying what they will do to a child that they believe is gay. That's why it's so dangerous to speculate. I think that as long as the Duggars have some small modicum of fame, there's always going to be those people who are going to allow them to do what they want at church, who are going to suck up to them, that are going to pretend that everything is all hunky-dory and that the Duggars are being persecuted for being good Christians. There's always going to be that hardcore contingent. You can even see it online. Every time I do a video about the Duggars, well, not so much in the videos, but when I used to write about them especially, I would get angry hate missives all the time. And it wasn't like, I think you're wrong about the Duggars and this is why. This is more like, die, Harpy, die, you heathen woman sort of thing. That is the whole reason Josh went to trial, in my humble opinion, so they could continue to blame others. Amanda, I am sure. And Jadeite Lady, I'm sure that they do that too, because I have to laugh about that. I got to tell you a tale on that from here. I have seen so many hardcore Republican types that are expats here who won't stop and get the residency while they're complaining about illegal immigration to the United States. And here's the thing. I love to point out to them at that point, it's like, do you know that by being here and not becoming a resident and doing the shuffle back and forth between the borders, you're actually an illegal immigrant? It doesn't sit well with them when I say that. But, I try to make the point. You want to be here because you feel there's some value into being here over being in the States. There's some benefit to you personally. So to complain about other people that are going to another country to get a benefit for their family that they cannot in any way, shape, or form obtain in their home country, and many times it has to do with feeding their families or fleeing violence, it's just ridiculous. You can't be an illegal alien yourself in some other place and then turn around and bark and moan because others are doing the same thing to escape violence or to feed their children. That's really where it boils down to for me. They're also persecuted. Oh, persecution. But you have to understand that persecution like that, the kind of persecution they're talking about, they consider anything that runs even slightly counter to what they think is persecution. They could even claim that somebody from another political party or somebody that is, say, a feminist where they're patriarchal, they claim that being opposed in any way, shape, or form is persecution. I can't tell you how many weak, lily-livered male Christian patriarchs I heard from when I used to write for NLQ. And they all brought out the martyr baiting card eventually and said that I was persecuting them by taking their own words and expounding upon what they actually meant and what their theology was. They love to play the martyr baiting card. They just do. It's just their thing. I knew a guy from a fundamentalist Christian church who was gay. He was beat regularly by church elders, was told he was useless. He had to tithe twice as much as others. Oh, God. He then committed suicide. That is sick. That is really horrible. But I've heard stories like that through the years. I'm not surprised at all. Sadly, I'm so sick of the way this country is going. I want to leave, but at 60 and on my retirement income, I can't afford it on my own. Well, I think it depends upon where you go. There are places where it's cheap enough to go. I'm going to tell you, even here in Costa Rica, there are places like my husband was teaching English in a community called Cope de Dota up in the mountains 4.5, almost 5 years ago. And you could rent a place there for $150 a month. Food was plentiful and cheap as long as you were like getting the local bread, the local fruits and vegetables, the local meats. Cheap, 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 cheap. You could live like a king for very little. When we added a garage onto our home, the crew we hired worked 12 hours a day. They took turns taking their breaks and lunch in 15-minute increments. So it was always someone working. Amanda, I see that a lot in the States. I've seen that with some of the Hispanic groups that come in and do repairs. Here, it's a little bit different. We had a crew we'd hired, and they did well till lunchtime. Then after lunch, when everybody had a little whiskey or rum in them, sometimes we would have some very slow work in the afternoons, but they were very rapid in the morning. I wasn't raised Christian, but from what I've heard, Jesus is accepting of all people. Crazy how people are so unbelievably judgmental. I know. If the GOP gets control of both the Senate and the House in 2022, I don't think we will remain a democracy. As a woman, I'm scared. That was my thinking. That is my thinking. That's one reason why we left. I'm going to tell some tales out of school. When the Republican primary started, Catholics got bought out. They got bought out. And we were told by a Christian organization, we were told, don't worry about it. Everything stays the same. Well, guess what? The week that Trump was inaugurated, we all came down on new restrictive contracts. There were certain things we could not say. There were certain things we could not do. Definitely could not use a curse word again unless it was imperative for talking about something. Example, at one point, Steven Anderson's son was engaged to a girl whose parents had starred in a film by the name of SHIT filled cupcakes. So that was like the only way that I could use a word like that was as the name of a film. And I always got kind of a kick out of that because before that rule was not in place, your language was your language. Then they placed all these rules and restrictions. And that was one of the reasons why I decided that I was just done. The rules had gotten extremely restrictive. And I still think that that had to do with the election they bought to be able to promote. They are hard workers, reliable and quality all the time. Yes, they are. They are. When we had our house remodeled before leaving the States, we had remodeled so we could put renters in, and then we sold it a year later. We had so many Hispanic workers, and I had no problems with any of them. The guys who did the roof were all Hispanics. And we had a Cape Cod with a very steep pitched roof. They climbed that roof. They tore those shingles off. They got that roof on in a day. It was impressive. I had never seen anybody work quite that hard at all. And compared to the people that I hired to do other things that were not Hispanic, it was a huge difference. Huge difference. When Trump was elected, my gynecologist panicked and told me, get your ID now because you don't know if you'll be able to get one anytime soon. I thought about that too. I had those conversations with girlfriends and family members. We're not disappointed with our landscapers, housekeepers, the crew built our garage. Amanda, amen. I'm not even disappointed with the ones I have here, except that I've discovered I have to sometimes supervise them. You can't just say, okay, trim things up, and then walk out an hour later. It's like, you scalped my bushes. That's happened to me a couple times. I've learned I have to point out exactly what you cannot trim and what you cannot touch. I need to find 2 other ladies that want to become Golden Girls with me and move abroad, share expenses, and live comfortable. Well, if you decide to do that, Central America is actually a good option. It's actually very reasonable to live here. I have friends that have moved to Uruguay. They say that Uruguay is extremely comfortable. There's more and more Americans there. Panama, almost everybody speaks English in Panama, and the dollar is the currency. Right now, here in Costa Rica, the dollar is super strong. It's the strongest I've seen it since I've been here at all. And that's a good thing because you can get a lot for your dollar right now. And every time I go to our Price Mart, which is the same thing as Costco, you should see I bought a big tub of Christmas cookies the other day, and they say Kirkwood on them, like most of their products do. So you go there, and they have off to the side, they have the daily exchange rate posted, colones de dólares, and it's usually favorable. They usually give as good as the bank within about a little tiny minor percentage point. But yeah, I hear you. I'm not coming back. I'm not going back to the US. I like it in Costa Rica. But here's the thing about moving abroad, and I know it would scare the hell out of somebody like Jim, Bob, and Michelle. They would go out to do mission trips, but I doubt they'd ever move someplace. There's what I always call the 2-year mark. If you can make it past the 2-year mark, you're golden. The problem is a lot of people decide around the 2-year mark that they are just tired of dealing. And there are things you have to deal with differently here. The culture is different. And if you move to a place thinking that you're going to change your culture to be like little America, let me disabuse you of that notion. You will never be able to change the culture, and you'll drive yourself crazy. You have to learn to work within the culture that is already existing in the place you are. Like I know when I call people that do repairs, they may tell me they're coming out on a Tuesday, but if they don't show up the Tuesday, I don't freak out. I know they're on Tico time, and it might be the next day or the next Tuesday that they show out. Do you worry about getting supplies imported in? Yes and no. Okay. What I do is I go a couple times a year to the US. Plane tickets are actually pretty cheap back and forth. I have these enormous suitcases. What you do when you go there, you take your tiny suitcase and you put all your clothing in it. You take your tiny suitcase, you put it in your medium suitcase, you put it inside your big suitcase, so that when you come back, you have two suitcases to shove all the crap in you bought. And I'm finding more and more where to buy things so I don't have to pay to import them any longer. So that is very helpful. The most helpful thing I learned, it took me a while to learn, it took me 3 years to learn, was that you could write down the chemical name of any over-the-counter drug, walk into the pharmacy and say, hey, do you have this? And show them the name on the piece of paper, and they will be able to figure it out, what you're talking about, and give it to you. Yeah, it's not the same. The Scum family hasn't done anything new. I went back and looked at their channel. They have tried to make themselves as the McMoversons happen as social media influencers several times. This is not a new thing for them. Their newest thing is they figured out they were going to move overseas and promote that. So I'm curious to see what was going to happen. What's interesting about the McMoversons is I only ran across them because they posted on the Tamarindo rumors list on Facebook. If you move overseas, one of the most important things you can do is to join the expat lists on Facebook for your nation, specifically for your nation or for your area. I belong to a bunch of Tamarindo ones, since I'm near Tamarindo. It's Tamarindo suburbs. I'm on some for Guanacaste, which is the state we're in. I'm on some for expats in Costa Rica. And the expat community is a really good way to figure out what to do and to get everything done the right way and not screw up and not pay attention to rumors. And sometimes it becomes very important, like they're getting ready to enact a law here in January that you must have your vaccine card with you all the time, showing you're vaccinated. Because if you don't have a vaccine card, you won't be able to go in the grocery store, the bank, the movie theater, a restaurant. You'll be forbidden unless you can prove it. And some of the people I knew who are Americans who were freaking out trying to figure out how to get the digital card. And then we found out that you don't really need the digital card. If you're not a resident, you're a resident, you can get the digital card easy from the government here. If you're not a resident, then your last health survey from the health department here that makes you scan in your card and you keep the whole thing. It's a QR code on your phone. I've got a QR code every time I leave and come into the country. And they just scan that and it pulls up your vaccination records that you've already provided to the government. Yeah, it's not the same as at home. But in many ways, it's so much better. One of the best benefits of here is the fact that it's so peaceful. The people are so nice. That goes a long way. We don't have any of this back and forth with various parties, political parties. There's very little of that. There's just none of that. It's just very peaceful and quiet. There's wild animals everywhere. And there's birds, butterflies. I see parrots in my yard frequently. 5-foot-long iguanas. I've got a full orchard of fruit trees here. We're getting ready to have a bumper crop of grapefruit. So there's that. There's so many different things that I couldn't do in the States that I can do here. And one of them I can't do. I'm running out of voice. I'm going to have to go ahead and go. I've been almost an hour on here. I just wanted to come on here and just completely break down some of the things that are being bandied about in the community as truths. And then here's the thing. If you have somebody that tells you absolutely everything about that religion is horrible and that everybody in there is some type of PEDO, or everybody in that group will kill you, just know that person doesn't know what the heck they're talking about. They're pulling it out of their ear or rear. They're pulling it out of some body part. I'm going to go ahead and yeah, I'm going to go to bed. And you guys have a good evening. I'm going to go to bed. It's hot here all of a sudden. It's only turned real hot. I got to see what's going on my air conditioner. Okay, you guys, be well. Get some rest. And I'll be seeing you. Oh, no, Grandma. I bought it. Another quick story before I go. to build a house here is a couple-year process. You have to get so many permits and jump through so many hoops before they'll let you do it. They're very strict about it. And we went home shopping and we looked at homes that were already built and picked ours out. It was just what we needed. And there are lots of great places here in all price ranges. Okay, I'm going for sure this time. You guys have a good evening. What's left of it.